Oh, this is perfect. This is a great topic. We're going to talk to Dale, calling in from Washington. I say it's perfect because we were literally just talking about this before the show, and a little actually during the show at the beginning. So let's talk to Dale from Washington. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Doing well. So I see that you want to talk to us about how sex could be an addiction.
Yeah. Don't you think any action could be you can acquire into an addiction?
Yeah, I don't. And I want to just acknowledge right out front that there are certainly good quality therapists that do. But I reject that idea, and for a number of reasons. One of the most important ones is that when we use that word addiction, we have to remember that we are taking a clinical term and then extrapolating it out into broader society and into a lexicon that is a little bit more fluid. And I appreciate that. Like, I have gone on record on secular sexuality and other shows saying over and over that words mean whatever people say that they mean, and that nobody gets to be sort of the arbiter of what addiction means. However, I think it's really important when we take a scientific or clinical term and we bring it out into the vernacular that we honor and respect what that word is meant to mean. And that word addiction has always medically applied to something that has a withdrawal function, that has a pressure from within your body in order to repeat that action. And we don't see that with so-called process addictions. We don't see that with things like, quote, sex addiction. And if we start really peeling back the layers and the labels around the idea of sex addiction, we see really quickly that there are much more healthful, much more reliably researched, and much more like functional terminologies that we should be leaning into.
Okay, what terminology are you referring to? Instead of a sex calling it a sex addiction, what would be a better term?
I mean, it depends on what it is that we're actually talking about. If somebody is having sex or participating in sexuality, whether we're talking about pornography use or getting into trouble in an affair or, just making some other mistake, making a bad decision based on their sexual impulses or on their sexual desires, we need to look at that on a case-by-case basis. And if somebody is doing so repeatedly and over and in a way that's causing meaningful distress in their life, sometimes we'll use terms like hypersexuality. Even that, I think, can be like demonizing and unhelpful in a lot of ways. I honestly myself work from Douglas Baum Harvey's model of out-of-control sexual behavior, because I think that notion of feeling out of control is a really great way of validating and honoring the feelings and the experiences of people who are in that position, while also recognizing that you can feel out of control without having a withdrawal symptom, without being addicted, without being brainwashed, and without being forced to take any sort of specific.
Yep.
So there's some kind of stigma that's attached to the word addiction, and is basically what you're saying. I wasn't too aware of it. I didn't even look at it in that manner.
Yeah. So we're, I'm going to add on to what Christy's saying once we get Christy to come back here. But yes, there is definitely a stigma that comes around the word addiction. And you'll find that more and more people are talking about this as a real problem, because the word addiction gets thrown out very willy-nilly to a lot of things that aren't as serious as what people who do, suffer from that should be. So, that's why we want to be very particular when we talk about sex addiction and what we mean by it in a clinical sense, because what the casual general populace says about it is going to be very different from what clinicians have to say. Like Christy, I think we got you.
Yeah, I mean, the stigma is a piece of it, but I also just want to be mindful that that's not what that word has traditionally meant. Mm-hmm. And I appreciate that people want to use it that way, but when they do so, they create meaningful problems for people who have serious issues that they want to have addressed.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, that makes complete sense. And so like if somebody's just getting off the like the sex addiction, but more like maybe like an exercise regimen, that is pretty excessive or something of that nature. Just what would be the proper language to use, to try to get to use, kind of put out the term.
I mean,
so you don't use it for an addiction.
I don't know what Christy would say, but you can say someone's sexually deprived and not call that an addiction, right? Like, I guess it depends on what you mean, what you're trying to describe, right?
Yeah, I mean, we can say that somebody is depressed and playing too many video games. We can say that somebody is irresponsible and spending too much money on golf clubs. We can say that somebody is irrational and spending like way too much time doomsday prepping. Like, we want to look at these things on an individual basis and not just label somebody who does something in a way that's unhealthy or in a way that we feel like is too much or just in a way that we don't like or in a way that we want to be judgy about as addiction.
Yep. Yeah, makes sense. Definitely makes sense.
There you go.
Yeah, I never connected the stigma to the word. I am one of those people that just kind of throw the word around, without reference. But yeah, definitely great information.
And you know what, Dale? I was too. And I think most of us were. And I don't know, Christy's entire life story, but I'm sure Christy has probably used that word pretty casually before too, right? I think a lot of us have. And I think it's a new social understanding that a lot of us are coming to, that we're all trying to figure out. I'm surrounded by people like Christy every day, so like I'm thinking about this stuff all the time. But it's good that we are bringing this more to light for more people to understand, the broader public to understand. Andrew might say we're pushing an agenda, right? But it is. I mean, we want. People
it's why I appreciate people being here or watching, secular sexuality, even if you're in a long-term monogamous relationship that's sexually satisfying. Like, I appreciate that you're here to absorb these ideas from experts. And I'm not an expert in much. I just happen to have read a lot of books on this specific topic, and I appreciate people being willing to take that information in and hopefully try and build a better world with it.
That's right. So Dale, I appreciate you calling in.
Because we all have.
And thanks so much, Dale, for calling in. That was a good call.